For the past 10 years, I've led a physician's Talmud study group called Dinner for Docs. Now, if you're a doctor in this congregation and you have yet had the opportunity to study Talmud with me, please take the opportunity to do so. Well, Dinner for Docs has reached nearly 170 doctors in the congregation, which who knew we had that many doctors in the congregation? But we meet about 4 times a year. We drink good wine, we have good food, and we study Talmud together. Now, over the course of my years, I met several doctors who are both parents and grandparents and children and grandchildren of other doctors in the congregation. One of those doctors that I've met, his name is Joe Beasy. Joe's father, Reuben, has been a member of Ali Beth Shalom for 50 years and is a doctor himself. Joe is an emergency medical doctor for Kaiser. And Joe and I got to know each other over a page of Talmud and a good drink of Cabernet. And I got to know his wife, Miriam. And they even asked me to perform the marriage of their daughter, Talia, to Leonard on a beautiful afternoon, on a beautiful country club. Joe even played the recorder. It was so sweet. I'm sure all of you remember who were there. But it was on that day I also met Talia's brother, Joe's son, Miriam's son, Ben, who is a tall, dashing young man with a huge smile. And with their permission, I'm going to speak about Ben this morning. Ben grew up here at Valley Beth Shalom. He had his bar mitzvah right here on this bima. He went to Emek Hebrew Academy and eventually to Milken Community School just up the hill. He graduated from Milken and went to USC, where he graduated summa cum laude and was a member of Phi Beta Kappa. He studied abroad at the University of Edinburgh, where he worked for a member of Scottish Parliament. He went bicycling through Tuscany and France. He was selected for full scholarship to the inaugural class of the University of California Irvine School of Law. He was the first person in that program to obtain the combined JD MBA degree at Irvine. And he worked as an intern in the Ministry of Justice in the state of Israel when he lived there on projects combating human trafficking. Later, Ben was employed by a company named Broadcom. And then later, after that, he worked as an associate in downtown law firm handling very significant litigation. Ben was a powerhouse kid, an amazing talent. He ran the LA Marathon twice. His best time was 3 hours and 47 minutes. Now, that's not the 2 hours and few minutes that the Kenyan ran last week, but for a Jewish kid from the valley, 3 hours and 47 minutes ain't too shabby. He was successful at everything and every endeavor he ever did. Ben got straight A's. He traveled the world. He wrote law review articles. He was respected by his friends and, of course, his family. He was loved by a global community. But tragically, at the beginning of this summer, Ben took his own life. He fought every battle, climbed every hill, conquered them all except one. He lost the fight against himself. The Torah teaches, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Last week on Rosh Hashanah, I focused on the first half of the verse, love your neighbor. There I spoke about love as an act of defiance against oppression. Love is covenant between God and ourselves that binds us in covenant to each other. Today on Yom Kippur, though, I'll focus on that last word, the word kamocha, as yourself. It's in that last word, that word kamocha, that gives us the internal energy to help us love other people. That all of us have a sense of self-worth, worthy of love, and gives us the space to love others. It's this word kamocha in the line, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. It's this sense of knowing that you are worthy of love, and it what funds the commandment to love our neighbors. But what if we don't have this sense of self-worth? What if we don't love ourselves? What if, as someone once said to me, I gave all my love away and I just don't have any left for myself? Rabbi Akiva said, "V'ahavta l'recha kamocha," you shall love your neighbor as yourself, is klal gadol, the greatest principle of the Torah. The whole of Judaism rests on it. And so we have to explore this idea. We have to explore this further and look into ourselves and see our truest self. Baruch atah Adonai, Yodea Razim. Praised are you, Adonai, who knows the secrets of people. This is the prayer we say when we see a large crowd gathered together. This is a prayer that acknowledges that in a crowd, one cannot truly know what is inside the heart of each person. No one of us knows, even friends we've known for 20 years, exactly what each one of us is really dealing with. The prayer says that God knows. God is the knower of secrets. But on this day, on Yom Kippur, we all need to know. As a rabbi, you see me. You hear me. You can see my social media posts. But I also see all of you. I've been at Valley Beth Shalom for 10 years. What I've seen, I could tell thousands of stories of all the people I've privileged of knowing. I performed hundreds of funerals and weddings and even more bar mitzvahs. I've come to know you. I know that there isn't hardly a family here that doesn't struggle with something. I know that there are families here today in this room that are dealing with depression. Families with loved ones here suffering from schizophrenia. I know that there are mothers or fathers who changed after an illness, and now their children tell me that something seems a little off. I know that there are men and women who struggle to make a living and that it affects your family life. I know that there are parents who can't sleep at night because their child is depressed or seems lonely, and you don't know what to do to help them. I know of children that ran away from your life without real explanation. There are families that are here this morning, today, that are seized by addiction and alcoholism. There are families that are here this morning in this room that are dealing with issues of mental health. There are individuals and families that are here in this room that feel invisible and broken and in exile. But the Torah teaches, Hanistarot la'Adonai Eloheinu v'haniglaot lanu ulavanenu ad olam la'asot et kol divrei haTorah hazot. The hidden things belong to God. But the revealed things, they're for us and our children to act on the teachings of this Torah forever. Hanistarot, the hidden things, belong to God, but our Torah tells us the haniglaot, the revealed things, belong to us. We must make what is hidden revealed for our sake and for our children's sake. So let us open the book of life, the book of redemption, the book of merit, the book of forgiveness. Let us open ourselves and open the book to see what's really inside together. I wish I could say that Ben's story is unique, that he's the only good kid that was ever troubled. I wish I could say that the Jews have figured out how to protect ourselves and our kids against mental illness. I wish I could say that our own community of VBS was somehow inoculated against the epidemic that is mental illness. Alas, we are not. Mental illness is everywhere. It knows no boundaries of gender or ethnicity, of age, or of economic status. According to the National Alliance of Mental Illness, this disease affects 1 out of every 5 adults in the United States. 43.8 million people every year, about 16 million adults, suffer from depression every day, and 42 million more live with various anxiety disorders, and many, many, many more experience both. Worse still, suicide rates has risen, according to the CDC, by an average of 30% in the last 15 years. In some areas of the country, it has risen by 57%. 45,000 people died by suicide in 2016 alone. That is twice more than homicides. We kill ourselves more than we kill other people. those between the ages of 15 and 34, suicide is now nationally the second highest cause of death. And our children. 10 years old. Suicide rates among 10-year-olds have risen 30%. Scientists tell us that mental illness is just like any other illness. When someone breaks their arm, they go to the doctor. When they have a heart attack, they can take medicine or have a procedure. And we pray for their recovery. We put their name on a list and read it out loud on Shabbat. That way everybody knows in the community who is sick. But as my friend Rabbi Paul Kidness once asked, we pray for the healing of the body, refuat hanefesh or refuat haguf, we say. But why don't we put the names of those with broken bodies, those with names of broken bodies on the Mishaberach list, but not those with broken souls? Where are those on the list with bipolar affective disorder? Where are those on the list with chronic depression, with Alzheimer's or dementia, with OCD, with teen eating disorders, or those who cut themselves or succumb to the disease of addiction? Do they not have our prayers? Do they not deserve our blessings? And we are just so afraid to talk about this issue. We're so afraid. Partly because we live in a culture that seems allergic to vulnerability. It's because we think when we're being vulnerable, it means that we're being weak. We think that being vulnerable somehow means that we're less than. We think that being vulnerable means that when we share our private business in the public realm, and that we shouldn't do that. But we have to. We have to. We have to shine the light on shame and on vulnerability. And the rabbis back in the Talmud, as they always do, have shown us the way. Just 4 pages into the Talmud out of thousands, 4 pages in, the topic of vulnerability comes up. And it's in a story. Once Rabbi Yochanan, a great sage, became really sick. He holds himself up in his chambers, but he refused to see anyone. Until his friend and student Rabbi Chanina came and visited him. And Rabbi Chanina said to Rabbi Yochanan, "Are your sufferings endearing to you? Are they something you wear as a badge of honor? Are you such a private person that you wouldn't receive even a friend's help if offered?" To which Rabbi Yochanan finally said, "Neither my sufferings nor their reward are enduring to me." Rabbi Yochanan reached out his hand from his sickbed and was lifted up. And as he became stronger with his student's help, he said, "One cannot break out of prison on his own." The rabbis knew from the get-go, we put up these walls that keep others out, keep them out of our deepest selves, including walls that keep ourselves out of our own hearts. But these walls can go from being a bulwark to being a prison. And instead of keeping others out, we keep ourselves locked in. It's only through openness to uncertainty, openness to risk, a willingness to be vulnerable and let others in can we break out of our own prisons. Ben's parents, Miriam and Joe, tried so very hard to get him to therapy for depression. But his disease and the stigma that our society gave him around this disease made him so highly resistant to getting the help he needed. Ben was not an isolated boy. He played with others. He went on adventures with others. People loved being around him, and he loved other people. But he hid his suicidal thoughts from everybody. He denied having them. And even when asked directly, so strong was the stigma of dealing with depression that his darkest thoughts only came to light when Joe and Miriam found this written in his private journal on his computer. "Sometimes," Ben wrote, "sometimes I feel like reaching out to others and telling them everything. But then I will just feel ashamed or risk people's confidence in me. Perhaps I would have some immediate relief, but I would jeopardize my ability to get jobs, And people would know these vulnerabilities about me, and I would be weak forever. I see myself reaching toward so many faces and arms, but I sink farther and farther down. It's a total descent into the deep. Ben never wanted to speak about what was truly inside of him. This disease that we call depression. Even when asked directly, so strong was his shame, so strong was his embarrassment and his vulnerability that he would deflect every question. And yet because of it, because of this terrible disease and the society that has stigmatized him and has never come to terms to fully destigmatize mental illness, Ben, like the prophet Jonah, fell farther and farther, slipping below the surface and down into the deep. Hanistarot. The hidden things belong to God. We cannot bring Ben back. He belongs to God now. Vahaniglaot. The revealed things. Those are the things that we're able to know, to do, to act. That those things belong to us and our children. We must make what is hidden revealed for our sakes and our children's sakes. And so for you, for anyone here who is dealing with mental illness or has a loved one who is dealing with mental illness, you who feel invisible, you who feel unheard, you who feel isolated and strange, you who feel in exile, know that I am here. I see you. I love you. You are loved. You are needed. You have our blessings. And you might feel sick, but no more or less sick than anyone who has cancer or pneumonia. We don't yet have all the tools to fully deal with the disease you have or your loved one has. But you are not weird or sinful or guilty for being the way you are. You are not a bad person, nor are you unworthy of a blessing. God blew the breath of life into all that is and gave all of us, including you, a special soul. Part of each of us is perfect and unique, including you. You are a blessing to us. You are loved. Baruch atah Adonai, Mishaneh habriyot. Blessed is God who creates differences in each and every one of us. I see you. I love you. You are loved. And you should know that there is no one quite like you in the whole universe. God prints the holy image on each of our souls, but unlike the usual coinage where everything's the same, God's coins are all unique. You are priceless. You matter. You matter to the world. You matter to me. You matter to this community. And being here, and I mean right here in this room with us, means that you have 5,000 other unique souls who are here for you too. No matter how alone you might feel, you are never alone when you are in the covenant. Each and every one of us was at Sinai with you, and each and every one of us is here for you today. This is your shul. This is your community. I am your rabbi. You are part of us. This is your home. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer et adam betzalmo, betzelem demut tavnito, v'hitkin lo mimenu binyan adeyad. Blessed are you, God, who fashions each person in their own likeness and establishes for them a potential for flourishing of every human soul. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer adam. Praised are you, God, the creator of every human being. I see you. I love you. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself is to know that each of us has infinite worth. This great principle, this great commandment that comes at the center of the book of Leviticus, which is at the center of the book of the Torah, which is the book that is at the center of our lives, tells us that to love each other and to love the world is a holy act. And it is equally holy to know that you are loved. What is hidden in love must be known. And to love and to be loved is not only an academic exercise. We are dealing with real people flesh and blood, connected in love to all of us. It's not just an emotional disposition to love and be loved. It is a mitzvah, a deed, an act, an overt and explicit act from one person to another, and now, as the Torah teaches us, from one person to themselves. Which means over the course of this year, I'll be coming back to this topic of mental health on several occasions. But more importantly, I've called a meeting. On September 30th, Sunday at 1 p.m., we're convening families and individuals who are touched by this mental health epidemic. Experts from across the city will be there. Organizations that are here to help with resources will be out in force. Please come. Please bring someone with you. Let others know. There are flyers all around the room. It's too important. We're calling this initiative So Healthy Together. Across the entire community, from the Early Childhood Center to Chazak, which is our senior community, to the youth department, to Sisterhood, to the day school, everyone together will be creating mental health programming and initiatives for our entire community under the banner of So Healthy Together. You don't have to be a member to come. The programs are free. And if for whatever reason that they're not, I'll pay for them. Whatever it costs to make them free. It's too important. This is too sacred of a moment to let slip by. There will be no boundaries. No one will be excluded. This is your shul. And this is why being part of a community matters. And why our shul, Valley Beth Shalom, shows that religion is at its best when it responds to the moral and spiritual needs of each one of us. And we have been so lucky. Since 1971, we have been blessed at VBS to have a counseling center. It's just downstairs. It's filled, brimming with compassionate and trained counselors who are here to offer counsel and therapy to anyone who needs it at low cost or free of charge. And Judy Cotton runs the counseling center and has very much been a partner in this work with me. In addition, our wonderful counseling center will have counselors and therapists at each one of these So Healthy Together programs, so that if you're there and you just need to talk, we are always here to talk. And finally, I want to say one more word about love. On Yom Kippur, we call this the Day of Judgment. We stand in awe of God, fear for what the coming year might bring. If you look closer, though, we pray that we pass like a flock before the shepherd, and that indeed we are the sheep to God's flock. The ethic of a shepherd, though, is not to judge one guilty or innocent, one righteous or sinful. The ethic of a shepherd, though, is to know intimately the needs of her flock. This little sheep needs more water. This little sheep has more energy in the morning. This little sheep wanders off. This little sheep goes wee, wee, wee all the way home. That was just to see if you're still awake. As much as Yom Kippur is a day of judgment, it's also a day of love. Each of us assessed not by a jury or a judge, but by a shepherd and a caretaker who loves us and knows what is inside our hearts and guides us like a shepherd back home. And so when you leave here today, raise your heads. Look at the pair of windows that crown our atrium. The one over the entrance are the words of the Shema, God's call to each of us to listen to God's love song, the Torah. And the other is our response to God's call. It's our little verse. 3 words upon which so much is staked. The 3 words that drove Rabbi Akiva to change the world. The 3 words that remind us to act for justice. The 3 words that teach us that we are worthy of love. It's the 3 words we need to hear all the time. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Let us build our lives on love. Let us build our community on love, build ourselves on love, build our world on love, because each and every one of us is loved everlastingly. I love each and every one of you. Gamar Chatima Tova.